Okay, guys, I apologize for the lighting. We're still here at the hotel. We're still training some this week. We've got to get everybody ready. I know the lighting's not good. I still got these earbuds in, but we need to address something that's pretty serious because in the last week and a half, I've been getting a lot of this truck abandonment stuff. And what we're seeing is a pattern where truck abandonment is being reported on drivers in situations that do not match what abandonment is really supposed to mean. So we've been talking to a lot of drivers. We have reviewed the timelines. We've seen communication chains, and I've been looking at a lot of settlement breakdowns that goes along with them. These were not drivers who have disappeared. These were not drivers who have went silent. And these were drivers what I consider were going broke. Basically, they were running out of money. And when they said that they could no longer go any farther, that company or companies has been putting abandonment on the drivers. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about is today is we're going to break down what abandonment actually is, where the pressure points are, and what you need to do to protect yourself. Because in the trucking industry, documentation is leverage and it's so important. Okay. What abandonment actually means. Truck abandonment generally requires failure to communicate, leaving the equipment unsecured, refusing coordinated returns, walking away without notice. That's the standard. Okay. It does not automatically mean financial hardship, negative settlements, inability to afford fuel, requested structured returns. There's a difference between neglect and financial collapse. And that difference, it matters so much. So these are some of the patterns that we are hearing. Okay. And this is what the driver's reporting and what we're finding out here in the office. Basically, these drivers are brought into orientation. Sometimes they're flown in. The transportation is coordinated. The onboarding is structured. Everything is centralized. But the problem is when the relationship breaks down with the driver and the company, when the settlement shrinks, when the deductions start stacking up, and when the drivers can't continue financially. The companies are basically just saying, return the truck immediately or it's going to be reported as abandonment. And we've got the proof of this now. The issue with this is, a lot of these drivers are 700, 800, 1,000 miles away. They have no fuel reserve. They have no travel plans. There's no assistance in them getting home. Their entry to the company is coordinated, but them leaving is not. And that imbalance is where a lot of problems really begin. So let's talk about what we're seeing with these drivers. So we got a lot of reports in the last 2 weeks from drivers at a carrier headquartered in the Shiloh Spring areas and in the Arkansas and the Oklahoma side. The drivers are reported, they're being flown into Arkansas and they're transported across state lines for onboarding. But when they exit, they report not being provided return travel to the airport. Now every company has their own policies, and policies can differ at any company that you go to. But here's the structural question, and this is the one that bothers me the most about companies. If a company can coordinate your arrival to town, why is your departure entirely your burden? Especially if you've been making them a lot of money, which these drivers have, and this is what we're seeing. That's not an accusation. That this is a policy imbalance question that I'm seeing. And when abandonment reporting enters that equation, it becomes serious for us. Now, let's clear something up. I want to talk about this too, because abandonment does a lot of damage to you guys. It affects your DAC reports. It affects your future hiring. It affects your reputation. A lot of income stability, especially, your income going up and down like crazy. When that word is used, it creates a lot of fear to drivers. If a financially drained driver is told, bring it back, this goes on your record, and they can't afford to comply, you see, that's leverage. That's leverage in a very bad way. And drivers need to understand how to respond to this, strategically, because you've got more power than you guys think. If you are financially unable to continue operating, this is step one. And you guys need to take notes of this. If you haven't, please write this down. You need to do what we call a written notice. You need to immediately notify the company in writing. And this is what you need to say to them. And you can go back and rewind this a million times if you guys need to, but you need to say, I'm experiencing financial hardship and I cannot safely continue to work for you guys. I'm requesting written instructions for return of your equipment. Say everything, screenshot everything, and do not reply anything else. No more phone calls, only communication. You don't want to do this over the phone and I'll explain to you why later, but it's important that you do this through text and emails. The second step is the demand and structured return. This is very important. You need to do this in writing. Who's going to cover the fuel? Because you're leaving, right? What is the return timeline? What is the drop location going to be? And how am I going to get home? Or how are you going to get me back to the airport? If the company refuses you assistance, that becomes part of what we consider documented records. This is what protects you later. So it's important that all of this gets done. Remember, all this needs to be done in writing. Now, step 3, if you cannot move the truck, all right, the last thing you want to do is disappear, okay? What you need to do is take the truck to the closest secure truck stop. You want to notify the company of the exact location. Provide unit numbers. Take timestamp photos if you can, or do a walk around the truck with a video. You want to confirm communication. This is very important that you are still communicating back and forth with the company, because what this does is it shows you're not abandoning the truck. What you're doing is documenting transfer due to inability to work with them anymore because you're going broke or you don't have any money. And if you don't have any money, can you really operate safely? I mean, think about this. So you have no money, you're going broke. It's because of a broken structure. No, I don't think so. You need to start being smart at this point. So the way you word this matters. So be smart about how you say this. All right. And step 4, you want to protect your record. All right. Because if abandonment is reported, you need to request a written explanation. You need to request policy citation. You need to keep every single document, because abandonment claims can be challenged, but you can only do it with documentation. Now, here at Big Rig Nation, we have already cleared up quite a few of these abandonments. It's not the most easy thing in the world to do, but it can be done as long as you have documentation of what I just told you, especially the 4 steps. The bigger issue with all of this is when drivers work down to nothing, when your settlements leave you no more cushion, and when the exit becomes financially impossible, and abandonment is the response. That signals a lot of structural stress in the system. And this is not about attacking a company, but this is about identifying a pattern that drivers must, navigate intelligently. So listen carefully. The goal is not to argue with these companies. The goal is not to panic. The goal is to control the exit, because you have more power than you think. You need to communicate clearly with them. You need to document everything. You need to coordinate everything. And you need to protect your record, because abandonment is a definition. And definitions only work against you when you don't understand them. So please, stay disciplined, stay documented, and don't panic. And don't let fear dictate your decisions.